มาร์คสวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีครับ
ครับยินดีที่วันนี้ทางกรุงเทพธุรกิจทีวีได้มีโอกาสสัมภาษณ์คุณมาร์คมากครับขอบคุณครับครับ What is your latest view on the global economies?
Well, obviously, if we break down the global economy into 3 or 4 parts like the US, the North American continent, Latin America, Europe, Asia, China, then we for sure have a recession in Europe at the present time. Most countries have declining industrial production and employment is very high, and even Germany in terms of its exports has decelerated very sharply. So you have a large portion of the global economy that is in recession. In the US, we also have a slowdown in economic activity. As an example, the imports-export at the Los Angeles ports were down recently year on year. So in other words, there's hardly any growth in the United States. And we also have to realize that GDP is not necessarily reflective of whether people improve their standards of living or not, because there are many adjustments that come into the calculation of real GDP, such as what is the rate of inflation. And every government, including the Thai government, cheats about what the true rate of inflation is. That is done everywhere in the world. So I think there's practically no growth in America, whereby an economy is very large, and so some sectors of the economy have improved, like housing, but other sectors have not improved. And then we come to China, upon which a large portion of the world depends, because China is a buyer of raw materials, of copper, iron ore, steel, and so forth. And the Chinese economy, in my view, is much weaker than what the statistics published by China would suggest. In my opinion, if you look at some reliable statistics, which are, say, exports from South Korea and exports from Taiwan, and exports from South Korea to China are larger than to the US or to Europe, because they supply China with components and machinery and so forth. These exports from Taiwan and South Korea are down year on year. So, and electricity consumption in China is up maybe 1% year on year. So the Chinese economy most likely has decelerated from an annual growth rate of, say, around 10% 18 months ago to now, in my view, maximum 4%. Maximum 4%. Maximum. And that, of course, has an impact on other emerging economies that supply China with resources and who buy also goods from China. So the whole world has decelerated dramatically. But as I always point out, you ask me about the economy. What stock markets, the gold market, the bond market, currency markets, real estates will do is a different story, because there the most important is printing money.
Why is that so?
Well, basically, the process of printing money is increasing the quantity of money in a system. And that usually is being done by the central bank buying assets, normally treasury bills or treasury bonds or mortgage-backed securities, and that increases the quantity of money. But already David Hume in the 19th century observed, when, as Mr. Bernanke suggests, you drop the dollar bills onto the United States, what then happens is it doesn't go to everybody and all markets at the same time. So when you print money, basically the first recipients are the banks, the financial sector, and well-to-do people. And so we have in the world a two-tier economy. You look at, say, properties in New York or London. We have the Mayfair economy, where, say, Sandy Weil, formerly CEO of Citigroup, he bought a condo West 15 in New York for 43 million US dollar in 2007. He just sold it for 88 million, and a similar condo is now listed for 95 million, a condo. On the other hand, if you go to Atlanta and to Phoenix and to Las Vegas and Miami and the whole of Florida, property prices in some cases are down 30–50%. So the economy of the rich people is doing very well, by the way, also in Thailand. And the economy of the people on the street, of the lower middle class and the poor people, the workers, isn't doing well, because they may have a salary increase, but at the same time you have cost of living increases, energy, food, insurance cost, education, healthcare. All these prices are going up very strongly in America. So the middle class and the lower classes, they are squeezed, and the money flows essentially to the well-to-do people. I'm not complaining because I'm in the financial sector and I benefit from rising real estate prices, from rising stock prices, and from rising bond prices. But all I'm saying is it's not essentially a very desirable situation, because the masses don't have money to really consume, and the few rich people that get the money, they have already everything, so they don't consume a lot. And then they go and buy paintings, Warhol and Picasso's, and these prices go up. And they buy properties in Mayfair and Park Avenue in New York and Madison. And they buy high-end properties in Hong Kong and Singapore, so that these prices are going through the sky. Also Vancouver, Sydney, and so forth. And the poor people basically are struggling.
So for poor people, what are the best place to put money in?
I think in general, if I travel around the world, what strikes me is that properties in Thailand are still reasonably priced. In some cases, they've gone up a lot. We have here in Chiang Mai a real boom in property prices at the moment, because there are lots of foreigners coming here, and there are people from Bangkok. They buy a second house here in the north, and so property prices have risen a lot. But by international standards, they are still reasonably priced, and the cost of living in Thailand is still very reasonable compared to other countries in the world. But to tell you the truth, when I was in Atlanta and Phoenix 4 months ago, I saw homes, properties that were actually cheaper than in Thailand for similar properties.
For the similar property.
Yes, cheaper than Thailand, yes, because the prices have collapsed. There were a lot of foreclosures, and families were evicted from their homes. And now some people come in and buy these homes, and then they fix them up and let them out. I'm not interested to do that, because I live here and I don't live there, and I don't want to have too much money in America for a variety of reasons. But basically, that is an asset which is very inexpensive. Now, do you want me to live in Atlanta or in Chiang Mai? I prefer Chiang Mai.
I would prefer you to live here as well. Earlier you were saying in the earlier interview about gold as a safe haven.
Yes. Well, I mean, first of all, nothing is safe, because when you have money printing and when the central bank pushes interest rates down to essentially 0%, as in America and in Europe, the asset market pricing is being badly distorted. I think personally that gold is still reasonably priced. Maybe it's even cheap, because it was at less than $300 in 1999, but it was at $850 in 1980. In 1980, at $850 an ounce, it was clearly overpriced. Then we had a bear market until 98, 99. Then it started to go up, and now we're up to, say, $1,780.
Some people are saying that the price of the gold should be around 2,400.
Yes, I know people, they say it should be $8,000. I know people like I don't know where the right price will be. I will now call Mr. Bernanke. Mr. Bernanke, how much money will you print? Okay, then gold will be $100,000. You understand? We don't know. The central bankers are going to print and print and print, and not just in America. They'll do it in Europe, they'll do it in China, and so we don't know how high asset prices will go. That's why I'm saying maybe at this level gold prices are still very cheap, you know, maybe. Because if I look at the increase in government debt over the last 10, 20 years, I look at the increase in international reserves over the last 10, 20 years, I look at the increase in the quantity of money in the last 10, 20 years, and I look at the wealth creation, how many, you know, China began to open up in 1978, but not much happened until 1990. After 1990, especially in the last 10 years, you have now in China maybe over 500 billionaires, not millionaires, billionaires. And in the world, in 1970, when I started to work, there were 2 billionaires in the world. Now there are more than 2,000. So the purchasing power of money has depreciated a lot, and so maybe gold is still cheap. I will never sell my gold. I own gold, and I will never sell it. Would I put all my money into gold? The problem with gold is it is relatively safe, whereby from time to time governments have taken the gold away from private people. And number two, it doesn't give you a cash flow. And I like cash flow. That's why I kind of like Thai shares, because I can still find in Thailand many companies that pay a dividend of around 5% per annum.
5% per annum. What do you expect to see from the Thai share by the end of this year?
I don't know, but I have a lot of investments in the Thai stock market, and I've had it now for essentially since the lows in 2003, and then again in 2009 I increased it. And Thailand has been very profitable for me in terms of investments. A, I have a continuous cash flow due to the dividend payment stream, and B, share prices have performed actually fantastically well over the last few years.
Any specific industry?
Well, you know, I shift around from time to time. I'm not a trader every day. I usually hold my investments for a few years. But initially, I invested quite a bit in the hospital management company, Bumrungrad and Bangkok Dusit Medical. And later on, and also at that time, CP711, it's now CP Oil, and CP Food. And I still own some of these shares, but I then invested about 18 months ago more in telecom, because at that time, the telecom companies were yielding 7-8% on dividends. So I thought they are out of favor and they are attractive and so forth, so I bought that. And then I own real estate related companies, and I look around usually also for companies that could be taken over, where someone could come in and buy.